This evening, once much visited sites around the country, some are now abandoned and overgrown. We hear all about a project which is hoped will bring renewed interest in our holy wells. Plus, a grand house on the border, which was left to the Irish people for use by artists and writers. We visit the Tyrone Guthrie Centre in County Monaghan. Welcome to Nationwide. Later in the programme, we'll be heading to County Monaghan to see how the Tyrone Guthrie Centre is celebrating their 40th birthday. But first, a woman in County Wicklow who is determined to keep the tradition of holy wells alive. Rosaleen Durkin is a member of a history and heritage group in County Wicklow. She has had a lifelong interest in the history of sacred wells and has worked with the group to identify and preserve wells for future generations.
The group Wicklow Wells, we set it up in 2013, and it was a small group of local people, and we did it really out of our own interest in preserving all the traditions and the folklore, because the real challenge is that a lot of the wells were just getting lost in time.
It is believed that there were 130 wells in Wicklow at one time. About 20 have been lost forever. The group have identified and restored many of the remaining wells that are accessible to the public, including the most easterly holy well just south of Wicklow town.
It's not too bad, it's just that if the watercress overgrows, it just can stop the flow of water a little bit. So we just get the water moving, and there's never really any rubbish here, so that's not a problem. We're here at Bride's Well on Bride's Head in Wicklow. Bride's Well, it's on the old Ordnance Survey maps historical layer. So the location was actually marked. It had just become very overgrown. So I think it was in 2016 we came looking for it, and it would have been just like this. It was totally overgrown. She couldn't see anything. So we just cleared away all the overgrowth, and the well was just there. So it was actually, there wasn't a lot of work to do with it.
Each well has an association with particular cures, beliefs and superstitions that have been passed down through oral history.
There's two big traditions linked in with the folklore. One is to do with marriage, and one is to do with fishermen. And the one to do with marriage is that if a maiden drank from the water of the well, she would meet her husband exactly 1 year later on the day that she drank the water from the well. And the second one to do with the fishermen was that the fishermen would have brought water from the well onto their boats, and there was a number of reasons. One was protection from fire, from storm, from shipwreck and drowning. So the fishermen had huge respect for the wells. And then there's another story where the fishermen would lower their sails as they passed by holy wells on the coast as a mark of respect, going way, way, way back. The well is called Bride's Well, and the head is called Bride's Head. And we're not really sure where that comes from, but the local folklore suggests it's going back to the goddess Bridget intermingled in with Saint Bridget, or it could be connected in with bride as in marriage, because the well is also associated with marriage. To be honest, it's probably one of my favourites because there's beaches nearby, the seals are nearby, and it's just a very beautiful place.
Another holy well, 15 kilometres in from the coast, had fallen out of use and was lost for over 200 years until Rosaleen's group found it on an Ordnance Survey map. Local historian Jack Byrne had heard of the well but never knew its location.
People said that it was a well, but it was all very vague and it wasn't discovered until, I think it was 2014. Rosaleen, how did you find the well anyway? Or
what happened, Jack, was we came here about three times and we couldn't find anything, and then we decided we'd just give one last go with the map. And we found that ditch looking at the old map, and we followed that ditch down there. We had to go down further into the forest, find the ditch, and then find the triangle turn to come back up on the other ditch. And that's how we actually found it. And then Shane and Stephen had the divining rods, and they tracked it to the exact spot of the well. So that was how we found it in the end.
In the past, wells provided a great opportunity for people to gather. But after the 1798 rebellion, it was a dangerous thing for groups to meet, and so the practice of visiting holy wells often ceased.
So when I was doing the research, we found out that the patrons had stopped after 1798 because people could be arrested for, it was called a gathering, like a political gathering.
There were 7 men shot or bayoneted here in Ahaul, just below us, in 1798. They were actually trying to hide in a turf clamp, but the British yeomen discovered them and butchered them. So
the first walks we did is that I was thinking the descendants of people who would have been at the well, a lot of the family names are the same around here, and that's why when we put the stones around the well, it was actually the children of those people that were actually bringing the life back to the well. So your great-great-great-great-grandparents could have been here walking at the well as well.
Wells often had notable features which the Wicklow Well Group set out to restore.
Our group decided to plant a hawthorn tree here because there would have been one here originally. What happens is a hawthorn tree would have been seen as a fairy tree and was often one of the ones associated with it, and then people hung ribbons or offerings on the tree beside the well. Was also part of the tradition. If you were sick or someone in your family was sick, what you did was you took a little piece of cloth as a symbol of the illness. You poured water from the well on it, and then you either hung it on the tree or you left it at the well. And then as the thing decayed, they were saying the sickness would decay. And then the other thing would be that the colour red was a symbol of health, and it was a protection from evil. So that's why a lot of ribbons were red. The colour red was really important.
To ensure the well is not lost for future generations, the group erect a marker produced by a local sculptor.
Then if we've permission to put up a stone sign, Shane O'Dree actually is in Wicklow Wells, but he's also a sculptor. So he carves the name of the well in Irish and in English on a piece of stone, and then that's put up at the well.
Not far from Ladies' Well in Moneystown was a monastic settlement that was the final resting place for the devout.
People physically carry coffins for miles and miles along these routes, and they came up over mountains because the base was quite boggy. It was considered that if you got to Glendalough and you were buried there, you were guaranteed to go to heaven.
The tradition of celebrating water has been with us for millennia, and the practice of visiting wells goes back long before the arrival of Christianity.
You know, the thing of blessing with water, like holy water, that would have been in pre-Christian traditions. And then as the church and the pre-Christian traditions got intermingled, both traditions now exist. There's 2 things at work there. One is that if you go somewhere believing that you're going to get better, that's also changing the way you look at something. And the second thing was that sometimes the wells had minerals in the water that when people drank the water, they did actually feel better, or they put the water on their skin. So there could have been silica if it was a skin problem, or there could be extra lithium if it was to do with depression and things like that. And then the other tradition was that people brought home water from a well, and that was to bless their houses, bless themselves, bless their cattle, bless their barns. So that would have been used right through the year as something special.
To ensure the well's oral history is passed on, Rosaleen often shares her knowledge with local school children.
So at the well, going back in time, and people still do it, people have left coins and they've left painted stones and they've left shells and lots of different offerings. And what people did was, if they're worried about something or they wanted to leave a wish or a prayer for somebody or for themselves, they walked around the well 3 times and then they left an offering. So an offering can be a stone or a flower or a shell or whatever you want to leave. I'm just going to start, and then you can follow me around in a circle, and we'll do that 3 times. So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that a further shore is reachable from here. believe in miracles and cures and healing wells. We would like to see more people just actually visiting the wells, because I think what has happened in Ireland is that a lot of people don't really understand the history of the wells, because there is a pre-Christian and a Christian tradition. And it's also nice for children to learn about these traditions, because there's a history of well worship all over the world in different cultures, not just in Ireland.
There are thought to be around 3,000 holy wells in Ireland. Most are hidden away in rural locations, but there are some that are near or in our villages, towns and cities. There are some locations where the name reflects the significance of the well in the locality. Examples of these include Sunday's Well in Cork and Patrick's Well in Limerick. There are many Irish place names beginning with Tubber, meaning well in Irish, such as Ballintubber Abbey in Mayo and Tubbacurry in County Sligo. In Clonmel, County Tipperary, St Patrick's Well has been maintained and looked after by the local authority, and today it is visited by people all year round. It is a quiet, peaceful place for calm reflection or prayer, or just for some time out. Other wells were not so fortunate, such as this one in the heart of Dublin. Located beside Trinity College, this hidden St Patrick's Well is passed over by thousands every day as they make their way up and down Nassau Street. The holy wells were once places of significance, providing spring water for thirsty locals. Since early Christian times, the wells have been seen as a gathering place for prayer and for those seeking healing. In modern times, they have come under pressure as our cities and towns expand. But now, as society becomes more aware of the history and folklore of these wells, perhaps more and more of us will become interested in preserving these old wells, which were of such significance to our ancestors. Beautiful and peaceful locations that might just encourage some of us to go out and discover a well near